Your instructional design portfolio is hands down one of the best tools that you have to land more and better instructional design opportunities. So in this video, I'll walk you through creating a great portfolio that will get you noticed and get you work. The reason that portfolios are so effective is because employers want to see what you can do, and the same goes for potential clients. So when they go on your site and they can look at your projects and see what your responsibilities were, it will really build your credibility and build their confidence that you can create the same type of solution for their need. So that's why portfolios, they speak way louder than words or resumes, because instead of saying, oh, I have years of experience, you can say, here's the work, the quality of work that I can produce. Take a look at it, experience it for yourself, and then decide if you wanna speak further. So when a client likes your portfolio, or again, a hiring manager, they'll reach out and they'll let you know, and they'll say, yeah, I came across your portfolio, it was so great, we want to talk about a potential project or a potential role. And it really changes the conversation when you can go into it already knowing that the client or employer is excited about the work that you can produce. So yeah, it definitely helps, if it will definitely help you build confidence and just help you secure those opportunities, which is what this is all about. So let's dive into it. To create a strong portfolio website, we need to create those portfolio projects first and foremost. We need to build the website itself, and then we need to market that portfolio to drive traffic to it and help generate some leads so that people reach out to you with those opportunities. So first up is creating those portfolio projects. I recommend creating a flagship project. So this is where you really dive in and show how you can use your instructional design skill set to solve a real world problem. So in most cases, this will be a performance problem. Someone isn't doing something that they should be, like a team is struggling, and you as the instructional designer would come in, conduct some analysis, you would identify why people aren't doing what they should be, and if it's because of a lack of skill or knowledge, you can design a learning solution to help address that need. And this is what I recommend doing with your flagship project. You can think of a job role that you know well, think of a problem that people face in that job role. So for example, if I was a customer support agent for a few years, I could say, okay, I'm going to design a solution for these customer service representatives. We need to help them improve customer satisfaction by empathizing better with customers, okay? And in this imaginary project, I'll say that they're not doing that because they don't know how, okay? So it's not a motivation problem, it's not an environmental problem. They just don't know what to say. They're just jumping in and trying to solve the problem. They don't know what to do. So I could propose designing this scenario-based e-learning solution. And this is where this gets a bit tricky. It doesn't have to be a scenario-based e-learning solution, but I would recommend that just because these type of solutions do such a good job at showing off the full scope of your ID skill set. It can show your writing skills, you can use this conversational tone. You can bring in some action mapping to show how you're designing based off of the actions you want people to perform as opposed to just what you want them to know. And then you can actually design and develop that solution, which is usually a bit more complex than a typical information dump e-learning where it's just presenting information. And then finally, these types of projects, scenario-based ones where you can go in, make decisions, and see the consequences of those decisions, those are much more engaging to go through, not only as a person who's learning, but also as someone who's evaluating a portfolio. So when I go to someone's portfolio, if I can jump in and it's more like a game where I can make choices and see what happens based off of those choices, I'm going to be much more engaged, which probably means the odds are higher that I'm going to reach out to you about some potential work or get more excited about you doing work for our company. We all know what this information dump e-learning looks like, where here are your objectives, here's some information, here's a quiz. And it's a bit harder to stand out with that type of experience. So this is the flagship project. You would have a write-up talking about that problem and how you designed this scenario-based solution to solve that problem. If the scenario-based solution doesn't make sense as a solution to your problem, then trying to make it fit is probably going to do you more harm than good. So it will take some finesse to make sure that the problem you're trying to solve matches up with the solution you want to create. Next up are the supporting projects. So I would recommend here is an opportunity to focus on a specialty. So if you really like storyboarding, for example, you can design a few projects where you just create storyboards and you can show off those storyboards and talk about, why you did it, what your role was in it. I like doing XAPI work, so some of my supporting projects incorporate the Experience API and data collection. And if you just want to get a job and you don't really care too much about a specialty, it's always a safe bet to focus on short, I'm talking about 1 to 3 slides, visually appealing e-learning interactions. So like a visually appealing tab interaction, or you playing around with a slider interaction. Just these really simple projects built in a tool like Storyline. Those are fine because the demand for people who can actually not only write the content but also build the work in one of these rapid authoring tools, that is what the corporate market is asking for right now, again, for better or worse. But if you have a solid e-learning portfolio, you're not going to have any problem landing opportunities. The caveat there being that you're using, your English is good, your writing is strong. That's kind of necessary to be an ID. And yeah, the visually appealing part isn't important too. I'd suggest mocking this stuff up and making sure it looks good before actually, you want to make sure it looks good because humans are very visual creatures. So if the projects don't look nice, it's not going to do a ton for your credibility. So that's that. And again, supporting projects, this is a good opportunity to include any paid work you've done or real projects you've done, because that is something hiring managers and clients look for. They want to say, okay, are these all practice projects, or are any of these things real examples? So if you have a real example, it would be a good idea to include it on your portfolio. All right, so now we're getting into creating the site. And I just want to add a caveat here, I'm moving through this all very quickly, but I do have an instructional design portfolio bootcamp where, I give a lot of one-on-one feedback. There's a whole community of IDs who are working towards the same goal. And we have small group feedback sessions so that everyone can workshop their projects and their sites to make sure that this stuff is in great condition. So I'll drop a link to that below, but that option is available if you want to dive deeper into this with me. All right, so once you have the projects down, it's time to create that portfolio website. So the first step to this is choosing the right tool, because to build the site, you need to know which tool you're going to use to build that site. And as far as where to do this in the process, you want to have at least one project done before building your site, but you don't need to have a bunch. Probably the point where you're really going to start getting good responses from jobs are when you have 3 projects up on your site. But if you have that flagship project up, you will be able to get a job if you did it well. So choosing the right tool. So Squarespace and Wix, these are what you see or what you get editors. They make it very simple and easy to get a website off the ground fast. So they're not the most affordable options. I think they probably run about maybe 50 to 70 bucks a year for their base plan, I would imagine. But Squarespace is the one I would recommend here. They have a ton of really nice, clean templates that are easy to use. So if you want to get off, up and running fast, and you just want to swap out some text and some photos, check out Squarespace. Webflow, that's the tool I use to build my current website. It gives you complete control and flexibility over the design. And there's a content management system, so it makes it easy to programmatically add blog posts or portfolio projects. But again, you don't need to worry about that if you're just creating a portfolio site. The downside of sites like Squarespace and Wix is that they're much less customizable than you would like. So on certain breakpoints, it might not look good, and there's not much you can do about it just because of the nature of the tool. So WordPress.org, this is another flexible option. It does get maybe a bit technical. Webflow too, you need to use actual web development principles to design this site. So it's not great for beginners. It is good if you have somewhat of an understanding of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. But again, they have a really good like university. So if you just want to learn as you go, there's great documentation, and you will learn more about web dev as you use Webflow. But you don't need to actually hard code anything yourself. So don't worry about that. WordPress, again, a little bit of a learning curve. WordPress.org, this is the popular one. This is the one that will give you that flexibility and customization, not to be confused with WordPress.com. I've stayed mostly away from WordPress, but some people have built great sites with it, and it's like probably the most popular website builder out there. It's completely open source, so you would only be paying for hosting and your domain name. Google Sites, this is a completely free option, which none of the others on the list are free. You would want to buy your domain, but that runs usually about like $12 a year. But Google Sites, yeah, it's very simple. You're not going to have a ton of customization options, but people have built some nice looking portfolio sites using this tool. And then the final option here is to code your site from scratch. One of my earlier portfolio sites I did build from scratch. I learned a ton about web development, and I've used those skills to, make good money on projects since then. There is a very big learning curve with that. You need to actually learn how to do the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript yourself. If you know the basics, you can probably get a simple site up relatively quickly, but if you do want to spend more time on your site and learn a ton in the process and have complete flexibility and control, I would recommend coding it from scratch. But it's a process, so know what you're getting into. And then it's time to actually build the site. So on that site, you want to have a nice hero image or banner. That's like the first thing people see when they land on your homepage. I suggest using a photo of yourself if you can, with maybe a one-line sentence about like what you do. I think mine right now is like, I'm Devlin, an e-learning developer and consultant, and it's like a photo of me off to the side. But you can also use like an illustration or something just to like generate emotion and draw people in. So that's, and you'll start noticing those hero images on other sites if you don't know what I'm referring to already. You'll want an about section where you talk about who you are and what it is that you do and how you provide value. I would recommend keeping this relatively short and trying to talk about it in terms of who would be hiring you. So what value can you produce? Do you create these really nice e-learning interactions? Do you solve performance problems with instructional design? Try to think about your value proposition and include that in this little about section. You of course want to have the projects and the write-ups on your site. So don't just link out to the final project where you can actually experience it for yourself, but also include a write-up where you talk about what role you played in the process, what your responsibilities were, what why you designed the project in the first place, like what problem was it aiming to solve, what challenges did you face, and what results did you produce. Like, the write-up is your chance to talk about all of that. You can include screenshots throughout it all to keep it engaging, and you can link out to the full project for people who want to actually experience it for themselves. Social proof is another very important part of your site. If you work with clients, then it's a good idea to, if you have permission, to use those logos on your site, and testimonials. So whoever you are, like, I'm confident that you could get a testimonial from someone. Maybe it's a professor, maybe it's, just a past employer, a supervisor in a different kind of job. If it's not an ID testimonial, have someone talk about like your problem solving skills, or that you're a good communicator, or you're self-motivated. Like, get someone to write testimonials like that, because having that on your site will go a long way for getting you credibility and trust with these hiring managers or potential clients. So don't overlook that step. It is important. And then finally, you want to have some contact info on your site. Just an email address at the bottom is fine, but you could even take it a step further and do a simple contact form, just so that people have a very easy way to get in touch with you, because that is the goal. You want them to reach out about these potential positions or these potential projects. All right, and once you have the site all together and it's looking great and beautiful and it has these strong projects on it, it's time to market that site, and more specifically, drive traffic to the site. If you're looking for a full-time job, this is easy. You just put the website address at the very top of your resume, say portfolio, and then have the link. And it's also a good idea to have it at the top of your LinkedIn profile as well, because a lot of recruiters and hiring managers and potential clients use LinkedIn to source talent. So make sure you're directing people to that portfolio ASAP. and a more long-term approach. So this is especially particularly for freelancers and people who are looking for clients. You can produce content to help other people in the industry, and you can post that content on your website, and then you can share that content on places like LinkedIn and Twitter and these other instructional design forums, because then people are only one click away from your portfolio up in that nav bar. And then you're just that much, the more eyes you get on your portfolio and the more people who are impressed with your work, you're that much closer to them bringing you up to their hiring manager, or a hiring manager seeing it directly and reaching out about a potential position or role. So that is that. I hope that you found this video helpful. If you did, please go ahead and give it a thumbs up. And again, if you want to dive deeper into this with me, I have a bunch more content in the Portfolio Bootcamp, and I give a lot of one-on-one feedback, and we have these like small group workshops. So that is a great place, or a great way to get involved if you want some more support in building your portfolio website. I'm of course happy to answer any questions in the comments below. And if you're watching this because you want to become an instructional designer, make sure you check out my full video guide to becoming an ID if you haven't seen it already. So thanks for making it to the end of this video, and I will see you in the next one.